Vanguard is the largest ETF provider in Australia. They have funds covering Australian shares, international shares, property, infrastructure, fixed interest, and now for the first time, global technology and international high yield shares. In this video, I want to go through their range and show you how to think about which funds actually belong in your portfolio. I'll spend the first few minutes explaining the key terms that appear on every Vanguard fact sheet. Then we are going to go through their catalogue in a logical order, including 3 new ones nobody's really talking about that launched just last month. And then I will finish by showing you how to analyse any Vanguard ETF to decide whether they are a good fit for your portfolio. Once you understand these, you'll be able to analyse any ETF properly, not just Vanguard ones. Let's get into it. Key terms and information. A Vanguard ETF fact sheet can look complicated, but there are only really a few key things to focus on. You can find the fact sheet for any Vanguard ETF on Vanguard's website. To explain the basics, let's use VAS, the Vanguard Australian Shares Index ETF. VAS is an index fund, which means it does not try to pick the best stocks in the market. Instead, it just aims to copy an index, in this case the S&P ASX 300 index, which tracks around 300 of the largest companies on the ASX. So when you buy VAS, you are effectively buying a small piece of many Australian companies in one trade, which gives you broad diversification. Here are the main things to look at. First is the management fee. This is what you pay the fund each year. For VAS, it's 0.07%, which is very cheap. Over time, low fees matter a lot, and you don't pay these fees manually, it's taken automatically from your investment. Then there's income distribution. This is the cash the ETF pays investors from the investments inside the fund. If companies in the ETF pay dividends or the bonds in the fund pay interest, the ETF can pass that income on to investors as a distribution. These are usually quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. This matters more if you want regular income and less if you're focused on long-term growth and reinvesting those payments. Not every ETF will pay much, though, and some may pay little or nothing at times. Separate to that is the Distribution and Reinvestment Plan, or DRP. This lets you automatically use dividends to buy more units instead of receiving cash. For example, if you get a $100 dividend and the ETF price is $50, that would buy 2 extra units. Next time dividends are paid, you earn slightly more because you own more units. This is optional, so if it is available, you can switch it on or off. You'll also see ETF size, which is how much money is invested in that ETF. Larger funds are usually more liquid and easier to trade. Then we have the number of holdings. This tells you how many companies you own through the ETF. Then there's the ASX code, which is what you type in to buy it on the Australian Stock Exchange. Now to the performance table, which is where beginners often get confused. At the top, you usually see several columns. First is ETF gross. This is the ETF's return before management fees and taxes, but after transaction costs and operating costs. Next is BMK, which stands for benchmark. This shows you how the index, here, the S&P ASX 300 index, performed over the same period. Because VAS is an index ETF, you want its return to be close to the benchmark since its job is to track the index. Then there is the ETF total return. This is the most important number for investors. It combines price growth and dividends to show you the overall return, assuming dividends are reinvested. After that is distribution, or DSTBN. This shows you how much of the return came from dividends. And then growth, which is the ETF's return excluding dividends. On the left, we have the time periods. For the shorter ones, it shows the return over that period. The longer term periods like 3, 5, and 10 years are expressed per annum, so the 10% means 10% yearly compounded, not 10% total. Now let's start looking at the different Vanguard options. Diversified all-in-one funds. If you are new to investing, the best place to start with Vanguard is usually not the most exciting ETF. It is the diversified all-in-one range. The easiest way to think about these funds is like a super fund investment options. In super, you might choose conservative, balanced growth or high growth, and the fund handles the rest. It decides the mix of Australian shares, international shares, and bonds, then rebalance them over time to stay aligned with your risk level. Vanguard's diversified ETFs work the same way, except you own them directly on the ASX. The range runs from VDAL at the growth end through to VDHG, then VDGR, down to the more conservative VDBA and VDCO. The main difference is the mix of growth assets like shares and defensive assets like bonds. The asset mix drives both your long-term growth potential and your volatility, meaning how much your portfolio can rise and fall in value. This is where I recommend the core core and satellite approach for your portfolio. For many investors, one of these diversified Vanguard ETFs can be the core of the portfolio, making up 70 to 85% of your investments. It gives you broad diversification in one line item and does most of the heavy lifting. Which one makes the most sense for you depends on your age and risk profile. Note, I don't recommend VDBA and VDCO, which are more defensive and bond heavier. In recent times, bonds carry more risk than many people expect, like inflation, rate sensitivity, and real returns that often don't beat inflation. Vanguard's diversified range is strong because for a beginner, one fund can be enough on its own. And if you add other ETFs later, just make sure you're making a deliberate tilt, not doubling up on exposure. That matters because funds like VDHG already hold a mix of Vanguard exposures underneath. So if you later add something like VAS or VGS, you might be just overlapping what you already own and paying extra fees. This is why these funds are such a strong starting point for most investors. They are simple, diversified, and reduce the urge to overbuild or constantly tinker with your portfolio. Australian equities. Once you move past the diversified range, the next layer is Australian equities. Vanguard's lineup here is pretty vanilla in a good way. One main core fund plus a few more specific options around it. Anchor is VAS, the Vanguard Australian Shares Index ETF. It tracks the S&P ASX 300 index, giving you exposure to around 300 of the largest companies on the ASX, and is also the biggest ETF in the Australian market. If you look at the top holdings and sector breakdown, you see exactly what the Australian market really is. Big banks, big miners, and large blue chip companies. Financials and materials make up more than half of the index. This is not a flaw in VAS. It is just the reality of the Australian market. But it doesn't mean that if you only buy VAS, you are getting broad Australian share market exposure, not true global diversification. Now on to some more Aussie options. You have VHY, the Australian Shares High Yield ETF. It charges 0.25% and focuses on higher dividend Australian companies. This is good if you're after a stronger income from your portfolio rather than just broad market exposure. Then VSO, which gives you Australian small cap exposure for 0.3%. It has beaten VAS over 1 year and 3 years, but trailed it over the long run and more recently. Small caps can have strong runs, but they are not automatically better over the long term. This can suit someone who wants more growth potential and is comfortable with more ups and downs. Then VLC, the large company index, at 0.2% management fee. This is for investors who want a bigger tilt towards Australia's biggest companies, not if you just want the broad market. And VETH, which is the ethically screened Australian shares option at 0.16%. This one is good if you want your investments to align with specific ethical and environmental values. So those are your Aussie focused options. Now let's get on to international equities, because the Australian share market represents less than 2% of global equity market capitalisation. And the areas that have driven a huge share of global wealth creation over the last decade, especially technology, are much less represented on the ASX. The main international option is VGS, the Vanguard MSCI Index International Shares ETF. It tracks the MSCI World ex-Australia Index in AUD, charges 0.18% per year, and has about 14.4 billion in the fund, making it the second largest ETF in the Australian market. If you look at the holdings, you will see the global mega caps like Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia. The US makes up more than 70% of the fund, so while VGS gives you broad market exposure, it comes with a heavy US weighting. Then there is the VGAD at 0.21%, which is the currency hedge version of VGS. Hedging removes the impact of the AUD moves against foreign currencies. Whether you hedge or not is a real portfolio decision. It reduces currency volatility, but also adds cost and complexity. It is not automatically better or worse. A few other potential options are VESG for ethically screened international shares, VGE for emerging markets, VISM for international small caps, VAE for Asia ex-Japan, and VEQ for Europe. Now, if you want cutting-edge analysis on the up-and-coming international ETFs on the ASX, covering China, India, South Korea, and more, grab a free trial of the ETFadviser newsletter, link below. The 3 new Vanguard ETFs. On 25th of March 2026, Vanguard launched 3 new ASX ETFs, VTech, VTKH, and VIHY. That matters because Vanguard in Australia is mostly focused on broad, low-cost market exposure. These new funds showed it's starting to offer more targeted global tilts locally as well. For Australian investors, that is useful because the ASX is concentrated and gives you limited exposure to major global growth areas like technology and semiconductors. VTech gives you targeted global technology exposure, not broad international shares. It tracks about 300 large and mid-cap tech stocks across more than 20 countries and charges 0.23% per year. VTKH is a hedged version of VTech with a 0.26% fee. It gives you the same global tech exposure, but with currency movements largely removed. VIHY is different again. It targets global dividend income, tracking a large range of high-yield stocks worldwide, excluding REITs, charging 0.3% and paying quarterly distributions. Vanguard is positioning it as the international complement to VHY. The bigger takeaway is that Vanguard is becoming more innovative in Australia. It is no longer just offering broad core exposures, but also more specific sector and income tilts for investors who want to build out a fuller portfolio. Property, infrastructure, and fixed interest. Let me quickly run through the rest of Vanguard's range. For property, there's VAP, the Vanguard Australian Property Securities Index ETF. It tracks the S&P ASX 300 A-REIT index, charges 0.23%, and has a fund size of 3.1 billion. The key thing to understand is that this is listed property, not physical property, so it behaves more like shares. For infrastructure, there's VBLD, the Global Infrastructure Index ETF. It tracks the FTSE Developed Core Infrastructure Index and charges 0.47% a year, giving you exposure to areas like toll roads, airports, utilities, and energy infrastructure. Then there's fixed interest, where Vanguard has a broad range across Australian bonds, government bonds, corporate bonds, international bonds, ethical bonds, and international credit. The key point is that not all bonds are the same. Government bonds behave differently to corporate credit, Australian bonds behave differently to global bonds, and things like duration and hedging matter. So with fixed interest ETFs, the benchmark is especially important because that tells you exactly what kind of bond exposure you're getting. How to analyze a Vanguard ETF. Now let's bring it all together with the framework I use to analyze any Vanguard ETF. When I open a fact sheet, I go through these in exact same order. First, I look at the benchmark. That is what the ETF is actually trying to track. This is non-negotiable because if you do not know the benchmark, you do not know what you own. The benchmark tells you the job the ETF is supposed to do. Second, I look at the management fee. The key question is whether it is reasonable for the exposure. A broad market ETF should be very cheap, while a more specialized ETF can justify a higher fee. The main thing is to judge the fee in context, not on its own. And if it is a shorter term satellite position, a higher fee can still be worth it if the returns justify it. Third, I compare the benchmark to the ETF's gross return and its total return across those periods. I want the gap to stay small and consistent. If an ETF is underperforming its own benchmark by more than the management fee over time, that is worth investigating. Then I look at where the return is coming from. Is it mostly growth, mostly distribution, or a mix? This depends on your goals, whether you're looking for income or growth. Fourth, I look at the top holdings. This is often the most useful part because it shows you what is actually driving the fund and tells you things the fund name does not. VAS sounds broadly diversified, but the top holdings show it is heavily weighted to banks and miners. VGS sounds globally diversified, but the top holdings show the heavy exposure to US mega cap tech. Always check whether those holdings match the role you want the ETF to play in your portfolio. Fifth, I look at the fund size and popularity. Larger funds usually support strong liquidity and tight spreads. With smaller or newer funds, it is worth checking how they trade before putting in larger amounts. Sixth, I look at portfolio fit. This is the step most people skip. If you already own VDHG, you already have Australian shares, international shares, and bonds. Adding VAS might be a deliberate tilt, or it might just be an accidental overlap. You need to know which one it is. So before buying any ETF, work through these 6 things and you'll make much better decisions. Fees and competition. One last thing, and is worth being honest about, Vanguard is not always the cheapest ETF provider in Australia in 2026. VAS charges 0.07%, but similar broad Australian options like BetaShares A200 are cheaper at 0.04%. VGS is 0.18%, while BetaShares BGBL is 0.08% for similar global exposures, and iShares IVV is 0.04%. So if your only filter is the lowest management fee, Vanguard will not always win. That said, Vanguard has still been cutting fees as competition has increased, and that broader fee war is a win for investors, whichever provider they choose. Now, if you want more of this kind of analysis, including weekly ETF updates and coverage of the global investment themes like AI, China, energy, and more, check out my newsletter below. There's a 20% off for yearly subscriptions, so take advantage of it now. And remember, always follow the trend.